Do you remember moments before the crash?
Oh, yes. The only thing I don't remember is the actual impact, but I remember everything that happened before. Like you said, it was a regular flight up until the moment it wasn't. It was horizontal. A lot of people were bustling around me, and my hand was raised up in the air. And I was looking at like my hand from my point of view, and like strips of my skin was just like hanging down. And I remember just doing like that with my hand because it was kind of, I was numb. I couldn't feel anything, but I could hear my mom's voice. And I was just kind of like just looking at my hand with my skin hanging off, which was so weird. And then I must have blacked out again at that point because then my next actual vivid memory is opening my eyes and I was in the hospital in South Africa.
I heard, of course, I heard about, like most of us Nigerian, but I heard about the Sosoliso crash. I
Mm,
was already living here in Maryland, in
I
America,
see. I see.
but I did hear about it. But when I saw you on America's Got Talent, and you said that, I was like, oh my god, it was very exciting. Of course,
Yeah.
as you know, that when you're watching these shows, if you see someone who you see yourself in, like whether it's a fellow woman, a fellow black person, a fellow African, whichever way you can connect to someone, and in your case, oh, she's Nigerian, and then I knew of, oh wow, this, it was so nice
Yeah.
to see you on there and see you just going for it. I was like, that
Thank
is
you. Wow,
amazing.
so much.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank God for such big platforms.
I know, truly.
Yeah. So let me, for I will let you tell the story better, obviously, because it's your story.
Mm.
But with the bit that I know is that the plane crash happened in 2005. 2005, correct?
Hmm.
Yes, and there were 109 people,
Yep.
60 of whom were students
Yeah.
from Loyola
Hmm.
Jesuit. Is that how to say it?
They're like
Jesuit.
Jesuit college. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and there were, according to report, there were two survivors, one of whom is you, but the other one did not eventually live.
No, no, there were two survivors that survived. Yeah.
Oh, so the other one is still alive?
So I very much so. Boomy. Yeah.
Wow.
Good friends.
See, the internet had a completely different name and said that the survivor did not die. In fact, that you are the sole survivor.
Oh, no, 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 no. There were two of us. It's just that she's very private. So
Okay,
there's not a lot out there about her because she was not
got you,
interested in like any kind
got
of
you.
media. She was not. She just,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the only reason why. But yeah, it's
That is amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, this is why it's important for people to tell their own stories, because
True.
the internet is over here feeding me wrong information. I'm like, oh, I didn't. Okay, all right. So that, okay, that's that's good to know. And since then, it says you've had over 100 surgeries.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes. Yeah.
that is amazing. I'm just 100 surgeries is a lot of surgeries.
Yes, it is.
You've had over 100 surgeries. You eventually graduated summa cum laude
Yes,
from.
I did. University of St. Thomas. Yes. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes, yes. You go, girl. And then you were even back on you were on America's Got Talent twice,
Yes,
right?
I was.
And
Yes.
now you're a singer, obviously. You're a speaker,
Yes.
and now an author of More Than My Scars, which I think is just such an apt title. Like, it's just a perfect. Yeah, that's just perfect, because you are indeed more than your scars. So let me start from the beginning, from the day that your life changed, and this is your story. Do you remember moments before the crash?
Oh, yes. Like my life before, right? Like,
Yeah, no, no, yeah, not just your life before, but like on this plane.
oh, on the actual day of. Oh, yeah.
Yes, everything is going well, and then not going well
Yes.
suddenly.
I remember everything that happened before I
Really?
blacked out. Yeah, everything. Um,
Wow.
the only thing I don't remember is the actual impact, but I remember everything that
Right.
happened before. Like you said, it was a regular flight up until the moment it wasn't. It was a regular day, leaving Abuja, going to PH, to Port Harcourt, and everything was normal. It was a regular, the flight is usually like an hour and a half, like an hour and a half, usually, depending on weather. And it turned out there was actually weather in the Port Harcourt area the day that we were flying in. So it took
Yeah.
longer than usual. The flight was delayed going in, but it was also delayed getting in. It was delayed leaving Abuja and delayed because of the weather landing in Port
Mhm.
Harcourt. Um, But yeah, I remember everything. We boarded the plane as usual. I was in front of the plane, the front of the coach section in an
Okay.
aisle seat. And one of my best friends was in the aisle seat next to mine. And the flight was regular. It was normal. I'm usually in the window seat. I remember even little things like being upset that my mom didn't book me like a window seat like she usually did.
Right.
Eventually I fell asleep, woke up, ate some snacks and things like that. And it was about when there was like maybe 20 minutes left in the flight when the pilot comes on the intercom and makes the announcement
Uh-huh.
that we're going to be landing soon.
Right.
Every like how they do that in flights.
Yeah.
So after he made that announcement, that was when the turbulence started. And at first, there was no reason for anyone to panic because it's turbulence. Everyone that
Hmm.
flies is familiar with the fact that that happens. But then it started getting worse and just very exaggerated, very like just really, really intense. And there was a point before everyone started screaming where it was just like tension building, where no one wanted to say anything or be the one to say anything, but it was clear that like this was a little more than what people were used to,
Right.
the turbulence. And I remember looking out the window and I couldn't see much from where I was sitting because I was in an aisle seat, but it was just like cloudy. So I thought maybe we're just in the middle of very heavy clouds and that
Hmm.
the turbulence was so bad. And then at the back of the plane, this lady kind of just screamed. And when she screamed, that was what made everyone kind of react. And I remember just like sitting there. Nobody was running around or anything like that. We were all strapped in, but people started screaming. You know how Nigerians are, started praying
Right.
the word of Jesus, screaming Jesus' name, praying out loud. And I remember just sitting there like in shock. It was just really hard to, you don't really board a plane thinking that the worst is going to happen,
Of
because it's
course.
unlikely. And so there was no preparation for that kind of thing. So it was just a very out of body moment where it was like, is this for real? Like, is this a movie? Like, is this actually reality? And before I could process much, like I was like just sitting there, and then my friend in the seat next to mine, we held hands because we're like, what should we do? Should we pray? What is this?
Right.
And I remember that's the last thing that I said. Like, I don't know, maybe we should pray. And I remember the last thing, she's the last person I saw, the last person I touched, interacted with. And then the next thing I remember is just this like metal scraping, like nails on chalkboard sound that just like jarred my brain, and then it was just darkness. So I don't remember actual impact. I just remember that sound, and then before I know it, it was just black, just darkness. And then my next memory after that is I was horizontal. A lot of people were bustling around me, and my hand was raised up in the air. And I was looking at like my hand from my point of view, and like strips of my skin was just like hanging down. And I remember just doing like that with my hand because it was kind of, I was numb. I couldn't feel anything, but I could hear my mom's voice. And I was just kind of like just looking at my hand with my skin hanging off, which was so weird. And then I must have blacked out again at that point because then my next actual vivid memory is opening my eyes and I was in the hospital in South Africa. And that was where like my burn treatment basically began for real. I eventually found out that it was a month since the accident that I was opening my eyes. So I was in a coma.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what happened. Yeah.
Wow. Even as you're narrating the story, you're such a good storyteller because I'm like picturing everything in my head. Like,
It's just crazy.
wow.
Time passes. I can never forget. Like, it doesn't matter how much time passes. Like it's just the memory is just always clear in my brain. Always clear.
Were you traumatized to go on planes at all after that?
Honestly, it's really a miracle that I wasn't. I really don't know.
Wow.
I feel like the main reason behind that is the fact that I don't remember the impact. It might
Mm.
have changed, it might be different if I could remember the plane actually like slamming into the ground, which is what happened to the other survivor because she never passed out. So she hasn't flown since the accident happened like ever. She doesn't leave Lagos. She's never left. So it's literally like one of those things where um it's hard. The trauma is different for the both of us. She didn't sustain any burns, which is also really incredible and a
Wow.
miracle by itself because we were both in front of the plane. We were both sitting like close to the front. So
Right.
nothing happened. But she didn't sustain any burns, but she has all the memory of everything. So she can't fly. She doesn't do it. Whereas I don't remember the impacts. I passed out before that happened, but I sustained all the physical injury, but I can still fly. And I think that's the real reason, the major reason why. I feel like if I had her same experience, then it might be different. But yeah, I don't remember the impact. So I don't have any direct like fear of like flying because of that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad because, it would be a very limiting life, if I,
Yes.
yeah, if I was. So, yeah.
As you talked about how both of you basically have dealt with this or even went through it differently. Well, you passed out and had the physical part. She was awake and did not have physical, but she got the mental. And I'm thinking about that saying that the hot water that hardens the egg also softens the potatoes.
Oh, I've never
That's
heard that actually. I like that.
yes, yes, because you guys you literally went through the same thing, but
It's
came out.
not different. That's so
Yeah,
true. Yeah,
yeah,
true.
yeah. That is amazing. So, you've I can't even imagine your long road to recovery from going from that. Oh yeah, this year is actually 20 years.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, this year is 20 years. So going
Crazy.
from there to where you are now, I cannot even imagine. But where do you find the strength?
Hmm. The strength.
Yeah.
It's a very layered response like that I have
Mhm.
because it's from so many different sources. The foundation of it all, really, first and foremost, is I would say my support system. The next would be my faith, which
Mhm.
came through my support system, and then the next would be, I suppose, my relationship with my scars and what I decided, like from the in the beginning, of my treatment, how I was going to relate to my scars and how the priority I was going to give my physical appearance when it comes to my identity. So, it's a bunch of all these different things that came together to give me the strength. And I think another major thing too, I would add a fourth, would be um, the memories of those that passed away, those
Mhm.
kids that were my classmates, and
Yeah.
then their loved ones that they left behind, their parents and their families, and like these are people that never once resented me for being the one that survived, but rather were not just supportive, but they needed me to survive. They needed the one good thing that came out of this situation
Yeah.
to be a success. And I just felt like I couldn't let them down. I felt the need to live on behalf of those that they lost, and it wasn't something that they put on me. Like, they didn't put that pressure on me. That was a self, like, inflicted kind of pressure, where it
Mhm.
was like I took on the responsibility to live my life as well as possible on their behalf, because I felt like I owed that to those that they left behind. So it was all these things really that came together to give me the strength I needed to move forward, because in the beginning, it was very confusing. I was very vulnerable in terms of everything: mental, physical, faith, psychological. And I did have these, I want to say, foundations that kind of kept me grounded. So the first thing was definitely my support system. My mom, especially, she
Mhm. I've
took
seen a
the.
lot of her on your Instagram. Didn't she recently have a birthday? Did she
Yes,
recently?
she did.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I saw that.
She's
Yeah.
my girl. No, she's from the jump. Like, and it was, and I don't take her for granted, because that's a closeness that we shared way before the accident happened, and I think that that's the reason why she was able to be there for me in the way that she was after,
Hmm.
because she took the time to foster that closeness before,
Yeah,
where I felt like
yeah,
I could tell her anything. And I felt that closeness to her, like, while I was all through my teenage years. So by the time the accident happened, in the beginning, she was really my reason for living in the first place, because I knew that it would make her very sad for me to go. And,
right.
I would live each day hoping that I wake up the next day to see her, and the next day and the next day. And then eventually it became more of my own will, and I started doing it for myself. Like, if I've gone on this long, I can go on a little longer. Let's see how far I can go. That kind of thing.
Yeah,
So, yeah. And then the rest of my family were just always there. And there's something to be said for people around you that don't um expect anything except for your recovery in terms of your wellness, as opposed to the restoration of your physical appearance, especially in my situation,
mhm,
because burns are such an insult to the human body, and they can disfigure in ways that are, like, so unheard of. And unfortunately, I did get that kind of injury where it affected my physical appearance very significantly. I could have had people around me who were very focused on that part of
right,
things.
right.
Nothing was ever like that was never prioritized. I didn't feel like it needed to be. And I had people around me that also validated that, where it was like, your wellness and your healing is much more important than anything
Mhm.
that can come later. So I had that support from them, that was what was important. And so it helped me also be confident in the fact that that was what mattered the most. And then my faith started to develop as well. I was born into a Christian household, but it didn't start to mean anything personally to me until after the accident, where
Mm.
I needed to have some other source of comfort that was not just like medication, especially
Yeah.
when medication did what it could and it still didn't solve the problems. So I started to go more inside, and that was also, again, because of the leading of my family. They never pressured
Yeah.
me. It was just more about me noticing the way that they behaved and how they all seemed to pray so much, and how they always like fed into me. And it made me curious about, the source of where they were going to get fed themselves. So that's how my faith kind of developed. And then the whole identity thing about my scars not defining me and not
Mhm.
identity, like that was a whole journey in and of itself, because I had to decide how I was going to feel about my scars and my personal appearance, unless the world will decide for me. I'm not going to be in the hospital forever.
Right.
So yeah, so I had to learn what it was going to mean to me first, and accept that, so that when I get out there into the world, and I did want to go back out there and go back to school, reintegrate with society, I couldn't let the world tell me how to feel. So I had to decide for myself. And so I had the privilege of doing that in a safe place before I was put out there into the world. So I
Mhm.
think, yeah, all that, and then just knowing that those parents of those kids that passed away were supporting me, yeah, it just really helped me feel like, as I got stronger, I just, like, physically, it made me mentally strong. Like, I need to do whatever I need to do to just keep living life and not let things like hold me back as much as
Mm.
I possibly can. And I had support. I had people that were willing to meet me in that place.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those things kind of just came together. Yeah. And
I'm
helped me.
so glad to hear it. You talking about your scars just reminded me that this Sunday and the Sunday before,
Mm.
what my pastor was preaching about in church was scars. And it was, if asking or wounds, and then scars, and it's asking if you were wounded for destiny or for destruction. And
Mm.
yes, yes, yes. As you were talking, I was like, I got to mention it to her. And he said it is your choice to
Oh,
decide
yes.
if you are wounded for destiny or for destruction. And then
That's
he talked about, when you talk about a wound that you have, if you are able to talk about it without feeling the sting again, then it
mm,
means your wound has become a scar. And if you're talking about it and you're feeling that sting all over again, then you're still wounded and it hasn't turned into a scar. And he did say how your scars give you credibility to be able to minister in somebody else's life. Because it's
so
like sometimes you go through things and it's not for you. Perhaps it's for
hmm
somebody else. It's for you to be able to change somebody else's life. Because what you've been through, somebody else is
can,
going through.
yep.
Yes,
Our
yes.
pastor sounds like a guy. Wow, that's
No, he's a wonderful guy. The church
cool.
is an internet. The pastor is white. Why am I putting it in air quotes? He is white. I don't know why. I don't know why I did the air quotes, but he truly is. Maybe I'm starting to forget he's white. That's why I'm like he's white, but
Like,
he's white.
no,
But the congregation is
wow,
very, very diverse.
that is so cool. That's
Yes, there are people from all nations.
yeah.
I think we're about 40 nations
Oh
in the church.
wow.
Yeah, so it's a very diverse church here in Maryland. But he is white, and you would never guess when you look at the congregation that
That
the
is
man is
what
white. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
true.
he just preached about this, and
That's
I thought about wounds that I've had in my own life. Most recently was the loss of my mom 3 years ago,
oh
and I'm like, that's not a scar yet. Because I'm like, if I start talking about her, I
wow.
will get emotional. And I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
when,
too. Understandably, are you joking?
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
hard one.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. That's so I'm like, I absolutely loved you just talking about that scar. And because you are an absolute inspiration.
Thank you. Yeah.
I follow you, I see your posts on social media, on Instagram, and I'm like, even people who don't have a physical scar, it's hard to come out on these internet streets because people will be mean to you. And I know you shouldn't care. Yeah, don't care what people say. It's so
We're
much
human
easier
now.
said.
We're human. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's so much easier said than done. But then I see you show up authentically as yourself, and I always love seeing your content. And I remember once you were talking about your body itching, and
yeah,
apparently that's a thing that happens after burns. And I
yes,
didn't know that. I was like, oh, interesting.
yeah.
But I thought that was so cool because there will be people who are following you who themselves are burn victims
Hmm, hmm.
or know someone who is, and they may not be able to show up boldly like
Yeah,
you do.
yeah,
And so they can live vicariously through you. From watching you, they are encouraged, like, okay, Kechi can do it. And you were so young too.
yeah, it's true.
It's not even like you were such a strong adult when it happened. You were still a child.
Mhm.
And you come from there to where you are now and all the things you've been able to accomplish in spite of the experience you've had. You've gone to school, you've graduated, you were on America's Got, like, that's such a big platform.
Yeah,
And yeah, so I'm really so glad to see, to hear that your wounds are your scars now.
yeah.
They've gone to scars.
Thank you so much, Vera. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And tell me about your self-esteem, your confidence, because you've redefined beauty in such a powerful and personal way, because people see themselves in you, even if they're not burn victims.
Yes,
People can still absolutely relate to you because, as women, we always have something. We always have something that we think isn't great, that needs to be changed, even while we are our worst critics.
big time.
But after everything that you've gone through, how did you then rebuild your sense of your confidence, your self confidence, your self esteem, your meaning of beauty?
Mm-mm. Let's see. This definitely was something that started in South Africa, which is where I was first treated after the accident happened. That's where South Africa, I was there for 7 months. That's where the surgeries that saved my life, like literally brought me back from the brink, that's where all that was done before I moved to America for
Mm,
reconstructive surgery. So while I was in South Africa, when everything was fresh and still in its worst states essentially, that was around the time when my decision about my scars, my identity, beauty, what all these things meant to me, that's where those decisions were made. Now I think I'll start with like the day that I grew curious about my appearance after some time in the hospital in South Africa. This was about 4 months into my treatment. I was in the
so
burn.
you didn't know what you look like?
No, up until that point, about four. Yeah, they usually there's a counselor and like there's a counselor that kind of comes in and checks in on you, and they're the ones who like are in charge of delivering like the really hard to hear
Mhm,
truths about your situation when they feel you're psychologically ready to handle it. So
mhm.
it can be revealed at a time when you're still like maybe for instance on the brink of like life and death. And then
Right.
even if there's some things that just have to wait. So there are two major things they didn't tell me until later. The first one was how many people actually passed away in the accidents, like the
Mhm.
actual the fatality rates of the accident, because there was a point where I thought everyone was alive except one person. Um, yeah, so and they had used that one person to kind of test where I was, and this was about 2 months in, where they told me just one person from my school didn't make it, and the way I reacted made them realize I wasn't ready to hear the full truth. So that's a whole different story. But the second thing was my appearance, and that was going to be on my terms. So they weren't going to say anything until I was curious about it, and I showed that curiosity about 4 months in, and it was with my mom. I just asked her for a mirror. The reason I did was because prior to that, I had been talking to my dad on the phone. And when she took the phone away from me, in the reflection of the phone, I had a brief like glance. I saw something briefly in that reflection,
Oh, I
like grain
see.
on the screen, that made me realize like, oh yeah, I haven't seen myself. And what I saw, the little that I saw was, oh wow, okay. So I'd like to see the whole thing. So I told my mom, I was like, I kind of saw a little bit of myself and I'm kind of curious now about like, how everything looks. And I remember she was just kind of like a little bit hesitant, she was like, okay. Okay, that okay. So if I'm sure that, yeah, no problem, that she'll bring a mirror for me the next day. So the next day came, she brought the mirror, and before she showed me my reflection, she was like, just so you know, we're still in the beginning stages, and we haven't done all the surgery we're gonna do and things like that. So she just trying to prepare me basically,
Right.
which basically told me it was bad, So I was aware, like, just brace yourself. The reason I wanted to know was very much tied to um, my self confidence. I was concerned about that because prior to the accident, I was very pretty, very aware of it, and I felt at that point at 16 that, oh no,
Your
I was
shoulders were high, Abby.
like, you couldn't tell me Jack. Like, I knew, and I did also have a lot of that confidence in my appearance was, which I think is important to note, was actually from my parents, especially my dad.
Mm,
From a young age, they were the first people that made me know that I was beautiful. They were the
I
first people
completely
that,
relate to that. Yeah.
like, once, so going into high, like in secondary school, boarding school, with that like thought process at 11, it was really hard for anyone to, like, you could take anything away from me and be like, I don't know things, I'm not good at this or that, but you couldn't tell me that I was not fine. You couldn't tell me that because
Mhm.
I'd heard this all my life. And then as I got to school, the reactions of people, I'm like, I know, that was the vibe. So so now I'm in this situation where apparently that is gone. So now
Mm,
I was just kind of like, I was very concerned about how I would react to that, because up until that point, I really felt like a lot of my confidence came from my looks. And so if I saw my new reflection and it deeply affected how I felt, like my confidence, how I felt about myself, I wanted to start whatever I needed to start to get past that. I
yeah.
didn't want that to hinder me, And I just remember thinking then, like, I just want to get it over with. And let's just see what the situation is. Like, let's stop. Like, that was my thought process. And I should have known, but I know my family was definitely more worried than me because, like I said, I was very aware. And so
Mhm.
they too were like, God, like, this girl that we know likes how she looks. If she looks and sees something,
Right.
how is she going to react? So there was just worry all around. So I remember my mom raised the mirror to my face and I looked at myself, and the first thing that came to my mind was, my God, everything looks so pink. Like, because all my skin was stripped off my face. I had no skin. So naturally, like, that was like jarring. And I remember just looking like, wow, like, this just, it didn't look anything like Kechi. Like, from my memory, I was like, this like, it's a completely different appearance from what I was expecting to see. But also in that moment, as I kept looking, I remember also just thinking like, well, it's not that bad. I mean, there was some, and it wasn't anything to do with like the physical appearance. It was everything to do with more of the essence of what I was seeing in the mirror. Because
Mhm.
even though I didn't look like myself, it's still something in the vibe just still was giving catchy. It was just, there was just something that was just still familiar. And I feel like in that moment, that was when the thought first struck me that, okay, so I don't actually have to look like catchy to feel like catchy. And that was
Mm.
a significant and obviously, like, God's sent realization in that moment,
Yeah.
because it immediately made me think, okay, so that means that, like, the things that make me who I am and make me catchy and give me that essence of catchy go beyond just how catchy looks, which means that I don't have to change the other things that I liked
Yeah.
about myself. So, like, my personality, my sense of humor, which can be a
Mhm.
little dark sometimes, and then, the things that I like to wear, all these different
Mhm.
things. I was starting to see a bigger picture and, like, seeing the future a little bit. Like, okay, so if I still feel like me, then I don't have to change anything. I don't have to stop being myself just because I don't look like myself. So that means that if I interact with people and they're able to, like, get past the change in my physical appearance, if I'm still acting like catchy, then I'm catchy. So I think that was like the moment that changed, like, just everything realigned, and I realized that, like, that everything about me went beyond my physical appearance. So that means that whatever I look like, catchy goes beyond that. And that was the birth of, I am more than my scars. Like,
Yes.
like, my scars do not define me. They are part of me forever now, but they don't represent my entire identity. And it was such a freeing kind
Mm.
of thinking. And to have that at that stage was so significantly, like, it was so important because it became the foundation of my entire identity, and it freed me from what anyone else might see about
Mhm.
my appearance, because I had found a way to accept these new scars, this new appearance as a part of who I was. And so you couldn't tell me, like, you couldn't tell me anything about it anymore. I was
Mm.
very realistic. I'm not like delusional. I know how I look, but at the same time, I also know that it's not everything about me. So knowing that knowing was just so strong inside me, and I just felt like no one can take this away from me except God, basically, because
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that gave me that thinking.
Yeah.
So so unless God himself tells me something different, then there's nothing anybody can say. So, and then that's kind of the relation that happened in the correlation that happened in my head with my identity and my faith, and my identity and God, and then him being the one that's the source essentially of how I feel about myself. So since man is not God, and and God is who he is, and he loves,
Thank God.
and we thank God, and we thank God. Since it's not God, since man is not God, then man can't tell me anything. Only God can tell me how to exactly. So once that becomes the foundation, it's literally unshakable. And
Mm.
so that's really it. And then of course having the people around me that like supported that, that kind of thinking. I mean, that's all she wrote, really. My mom,
Yes.
dad, my sister, my friends, like people. I remember years later, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but like it's a little related, because years later, after I moved to America, this was in 2008. A group
Mhm.
of my friends from Loyola High School had moved over to America for college, and
Okay.
when they realized I was now in America, they planned like a road trip to come and see me.
Oh,
And that
nice.
was the first time that they were going to be seeing me since the accident happened. So it was three guys. So when they came in, and we were friends in school too, so we're familiar. So I was very excited to see them as well. But I was also aware that they haven't seen me since then, and so I'm sure they would be a little like worried. So when they came and they saw me, they were a little like kind of like calm, very unlike how they are normally. They're very rowdy, and I was just talking to them like normal, like see these guys, stupid, just talking and bants and stuff.
Right.
And I remember like maybe 15 minutes or so after like talking and gisting, one of them, his name is Chima, he was just like, look at this stupid girl. She's still the same person that she was. Like he just relaxed. His demeanor was so, he was like, oh, what was I worried about? You get, and
Right.
you'll never know like how much that meant to me in that moment, because like it meant that like the essence of who I was had come through,
Yeah.
despite what they were worried about, and
Right.
they immediately relaxed and were just talking like everything was normal, and it gave me insights to the fact that like the attitude that I had decided to take on about this was the right one.
Yeah.
Just be yourself, and people will come around and they'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like they'll be fine,
Mhm.
and because like that's another thing. Like I feel like I don't blame anyone for being a little worried about how to relate to me when they first see me, because it just makes sense. Like I would do the same too, because I don't know what stage you are mentally about your situation
Right.
and all that, and I get it. So I always give grace in that way. So I'm aware. I feel like there's an effort that I have to make as well to help people relax. So
Mhm.
and it's luckily it doesn't come like it's not difficult for me. I just have to be who I am. But I'm happy that that is enough to help people just kind of like, okay, I,
Yeah.
she's cool. She's
Yeah.
okay, so I can just talk normally to her. Yeah. So Chima really like his reaction really like was very validating. So all that to say like yeah, that's the hopefully in a way I've explained how like my mentality about
Yes.
my self worth kind of came to be and came to solidify in that moment, and that's really what I've been writing on ever since. And so far it's been great. People have been pretty good. You
It's
know,
been working.
it's been working. It's years and years later, so
Yes. Yes, that no, that is amazing. It's kind of like when people lose someone in their lives
mm,
and you want to call or be there, but then you don't know what to
you
say.
don't know how exactly.
And yeah, and I totally get it again because I lost my mom. And there are some people that I'll run into them somewhere and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry I didn't call. I wanted to, but I just didn't know what to say. I get that. It's like you know that your words are not going to bring the person back, and then you don't know if you're making it worse or
That's good. Yeah,
yeah.
reviving it
So
up. Yeah,
yes,
mm,
yes, yes. So I get, and I'm glad that your friends came out. Like, oh, she's still the same
it's just
person.
the same.
It's just a little burn here and there. She's the same person. That's good to know.
Literally. It was nice.
So,
It was nice.
um, you talked about God a few
Mm,
times. Where do you think you would be if you didn't, if your relationship with God wasn't what it is?
oof.
And also, do you or did you ever have moments where you were mad at him, where you questioned him?
Hell yeah. Oh
Yeah.
hell yeah. Oh my god, yes. Like that's one thing. Like when people, some people, a lot of people ask me about like survivor's guilt. And that's a very legitimate question considering
Mm,
the whole situation. But I didn't really have, I never had, that was never a feeling I had because I just had so much support, especially from the people who might have made me feel like being guilty. You know, the
yeah.
parents of these kids, they were, of all people, they were the ones, if they had been feeling a type of way and never reached out, I would have understood, and that might have made me have that feeling. But they were
Right.
so supportive, I never got a chance to really feel that. What I did feel was definitely survivor's rage, survivor's anger. I
Mm,
definitely, before anything, like, that was when I found out the truth about the accident and how everyone was gone,
including your best friend.
including my best. Like, it was literally ground. I didn't understand, quite frankly, and I was very upset
Mm,
because my thought process was like, I don't get it. Like when I'm crying to my mom, I'm like, how come you're telling me about this God that's so amazing and so big and so great, and then he lets 60 kids die? It doesn't make any sense to me. He's supposed to be this powerful being. He's supposed to be the one that saved me. Why, if he could save me, then he has the power to save everyone else.
right.
Why wouldn't he? I don't understand. Why make an example out of everyone? I don't get the point of that. I don't get how he can allow that to happen. So definitely I was very upset. I felt like if I was alive, everyone else deserved to be alive too. That's how I felt. I felt like he had the power, so why didn't he? And
Mm,
I remember that that was a very hard one because I was dealing with a lot of like anger and depression about the fact that, they didn't survive,
yeah.
and like, they could have. And it's like, I just have to accept that that's just what God decided to do. Like, why? And my mom, oh, there's nothing she didn't do. She ministered to me. She would go and talk to her own parents, and she would come back and talk to me, and she would read the Bible and come back and talk to me. And it was in the middle of one of our conversations that she gave me a different perspective that actually stuck. And
Oh,
it was, Kechi, being a Christian does not mean that bad things will never happen to you anymore. That's
mm,
not that's not what being a believer is. You believe in Jesus and that's great, but that does not exempt you from life happening to you.
yeah.
And that is unfortunate. It is an unfortunate fact. We live in a flawed world and we have free will. He does not control our lives once we believe in him. That he decided that. So there will be, human beings will make mistakes and they will affect everyone, good and bad. Bad things happen to good and bad people. And it was such a hard thing to hear
Yeah.
because you feel like as you're a believer, there's supposed to be this protection around you.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
feel like there's a shield.
No weapon fashioned against,
That's right there in the Bible.
yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so hearing that was very tough, but I couldn't deny the fact that there were so many examples of that fact as well in the Bible about Christians
Yes.
going through fire, literally,
Yes.
for their beliefs and despite their beliefs. So it was just like, okay. So she said that, and I swallowed that. I try, and then she followed up with that. What being a Christian and believing in Jesus does, however, is that it gives you a place to go. It gives you a place of solace when those bad things happen. He is the source of your comfort and your peace in the
Mm,
moments that those bad things happen. That's what he's there for. That's that separation that you're looking for. Because if you don't have that belief,
mm,
then when bad things happen, you're desolate and you're lost. You only have yourself and what other people can provide, other humans like you can provide
mhm,
when you're sad and desperate and struggling and depressed. That's what not having God means. You're the end of your strength, and other people are the extent of your strength after you. And
mm.
what happens when they don't have anything else to give?
Right.
And you're lost. But
Right.
having God is an endless source. It's an endless source
I like that.
comfort, of solace, of refuge, where you go to cry out your whole soul when those bad things happen. But knowing that He's there, endlessly providing you that comfort and that refuge, you also recharge. You get rejuvenated, re-strengthened to go back out there and put up that fight that you need to put up to get better. That just like it fundamentally changed
Yeah.
my perspective on faith.
Yeah.
and what
Yeah.
and who God was and who he was going to be to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he wasn't the source of bad things. He didn't make bad things happen, but when they do happen, he's there, changing everything.
Mm,
So that was the way that my faith came in clutch for me in that moment. And I don't know that I would ever have come out of that place without that kind of perspective.
mhm.
That only happened because I had, you know, a source. Like my the person who was my source was my mom and my family, and they had an endless source, to get these kinds of um, ministrations from, to impart, on me, who I was, brand new in this whole faith thing at that time. So that's really, I feel like I don't know where I would be without, I mean, how I would have gotten to that point of thinking
Right.
without, God being involved. And, it's very scary to think, because I know the state of mind I was in that time, and it wasn't good. It wasn't fun. And I don't know how I would have pulled myself out of it by myself. So that was really it. That was the main thing that changed everything for me.
Do you think that you would be who you are today had you not gone through this experience? Would
Oh,
you
wow.
be this author? Would you be a motivational speaker? Would you have this level of faith if you had not gone through that transformative experience?
It's really hard
I
to,
know we can't know the road we didn't
yes,
travel.
it's true. Obviously, we can't know the truth. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's hard also to just to say yes to something like, or rather no to something like that, because
Right.
of how many people were sacrificed for me to have this experience.
Mm,
Um, but I will say that the interests that, um, how would I say this? The things I ended up doing down the line after the accident, they correlate to what my interests were as a child and a teenager. Very
mm,
interesting way. It was actually in the process of writing my book that I realized that I had finally found I was in a place where I was making a living and fulfilling the things that I discounted as hobbies when I was younger. So when I
yes.
was so when I was in like secondary school, and just at that age, I already loved singing. I
Hmm.
love to write, and I love to talk. These were three things that I was good at, and I was doing things that reflected that. I used to write this fictional story that
Oh,
yeah, that was actually like a series. And I forgot about these things until I was writing my book, because I remember in school, I was writing this book that literally, whenever I wrote a new chapter, it would like circulate amongst like my, literally, they would be like waiting
yeah.
for a new chapter. And that's something I just never, and that book unfortunately was lost because I was bringing it home for the first time to show my mom when the accident happened.
Oh,
It
I
was lost,
see.
and it just sucks. But like, I was talking to my friends and I was like, "Do you guys?" And they were like, "Yeah, of course we remember your book. Yeah, we remember the book. Like, yeah, every time a new chapter came out, we were
Right,
upset because like we would never be able to read it until like the people in your class had already read it. Like, so
right.
that was something. So that was obviously like a prelude, and that was something I was doing for fun, and it was never considered. I never took it seriously because it was just fun, you know.
Yeah, and plus as a Nigerian kid, nobody's encouraging you to what
About
you want to write.
writing. In fact, if I tell them when I'm writing instead of studying.
Exactly. No, I completely relate to what you said. Because the three things you love doing are the three things I love doing as a kid.
Oh,
Except, of
really?
course, I would not go to America. No, no, I like singing. Does not mean that I actually can sing or should be singing publicly. But yes, but the writing and the speaking, oh yeah, the talking
The
and the
talking.
writing
Oh,
in
yes.
school. In school, they give you all these awards. I was always best in English.
Oh,
I was,
really?
yes, I was always writing, but I never saw it
It
as
was
a
like just a fun
thing
little
to
thing.
do
I know.
because I was born to two medical doctors and they said I was
Oh
going
my
to be a doctor.
God.
So all my mind was, I decided is in your blood. You are going to
That's
be a doctor.
crazy.
That's it. There was no but, maybe nothing, doctor.
Doctor.
So that's
Period.
all. And I never liked anything about medicine, but they said I would be a doctor. So
And
I
that was
kept
you
trying
are
to go that way. And of course, it didn't
and
work out. Only as an adult, much, much later, am I like, okay, maybe I can even when I started my blog, it wasn't for money. I just wanted to have fun. I was just having fun.
Because you
Um,
love it naturally. You just love
yeah, as a Nigerian kid, you want to what?
it's crazy. It's actually so crazy how
We'll beat it out of you.
no, literally, don't even try it. Don't even bring it up, you know?
Is that what I'm paying school fees for? To God.
Exactly. Exactly. It's gonna be writing words. Are you joking? Are you Man, it was crazy. It was actually so crazy. Like we just never all these things were just we just had no choice but to just think of them
Yes,
as and just
yes,
suppress it almost really, you know.
yes,
And that's what to say. My parents were very of all if I compare to other like my friends' parents, my they were very lenient. They were very cool. They just but I know no matter how cool they were, like if I tell them like, this is what I'm doing, like and then my grades are like dropping and they're not good, then it's like they're seeing the correlation there and I
right,
just
right.
myself to back it up, you know? So like yeah, so the writing was one thing. The singing was another thing that I used to do also. I used to sing in church, I used to sing in the choir.
Mm,
I know as a like in school plays and then
okay.
yeah, and then also like in the choir too actually, yeah. And then in school plays I would do a lot of like acting and I would do a lot of
Mm,
anything that had me talking essentially.
yes,
So, like, debates eventually also when I
yes,
was
me
in school
too.
here. Like all these things, like, these were things that were just like extracurricular. They were not
Yes,
like a major part of like our
at
curriculum.
all, at
Like
all.
but then Sea Life,
Yes,
that singing became America's Got Talent. That fictional book I was writing became my book more than my scars. And then
right.
the talking part became a huge part of, my being an inspirational speaker. So
Yes.
in a very interesting, like I feel like God just took this long, windy path to
Hmm.
get me
Hmm.
to fulfill those things that He obviously put inside me at a very young
Yes.
age. So I don't know if I would have ever pursued those things,
Right.
if life hadn't gone the way it did, just because
Right.
of the state that I like the way I thought about them at the time.
Yes.
However, if
Yes.
I had the plan without the accident happening was me to leave Nigeria and go to school in London. So and you know what exposure does. You get there and then you get
Yes.
abroad and then you start seeing possibilities. So
Hmm.
it might have gone a different route. It might have taken longer, shorter, but I do feel that as long as I had been given the chance to leave Nigeria, some way, somehow, one of these things at least might have ended up
Right.
being
Right.
in my life. Yeah, just differently, very
Yes.
differently.
Yes. I don't know if I wish that, but sometimes I wish that we could know the road not traveled,
I
right?
know what you
Like
mean.
you could have, if you had done this, that, then this would have, because I know that for myself, sometimes when I find myself in a difficult place, then I start doubting all the decisions I've made.
That led you to
I
that place.
start wondering, okay, is this happening because this is what
I did
God
this.
wants me to do? Or is
hmm
it because I did something wrong? Or I
Yeah,
didn't do something? Or, like you start
so hard.
doubting
Yeah,
everything up until, even if at the time you made the decision, you loved it. But
exactly.
now you're like, I don't know. I
Who was
don't
I?
know. Maybe that was bad.
That's
Yeah.
exact. It's so true.
Yeah.
That it
Yeah.
really. I know, and I really still today. I really struggle with that too because sometimes the thing that seemed like a blessing from God at the time it
Yes.
happened ends up being such a nasty thing down the line,
Yes.
like years
Yes.
later. And you start
Yes.
wondering, like, was I just listening to my own voice at the time?
Yes. Yes.
Or like, was this
Yes.
always the natural trajectory for this thing to get to this point? Like, and it's true. It's so hard to try to not pick apart whether or not God was really in it or if it was just your own self-serving
Mhm.
thoughts. Like it's a struggle till today, honestly. I still don't know. I don't know the answer to that. It's like
Yes,
I
me
really
neither. And I have a perfect example for that, which I'm mentioning now here, even though it has nothing to do with technically with this episode, but because of people who are watching, it's my example is I was married for 6 years and then I got divorced. I left the marriage, but leaving that marriage, I mean, I left on my own, but leaving the marriage had me doubting myself
mm,
for a while. I wasn't doubting the decision to leave. I was doubting the decision to marry him.
married.
Now I'm questioning, oh, well, how did you pick that guy? What were you thinking? So
Oh,
now I want to make other decisions, and I'm like, well, Vera, remember how you remember you made a
oh
mistake.
man, the
Yeah,
trauma.
remember you picked wrong before. So don't trust anything that you're.
No.
Yes, so I struggled with that for a while. Yes, even after I got in a relationship, when I dated someone, I stayed in that a little longer than I should have because, well, you made a mistake when you agreed to marry the other one. So maybe just
Oh
make
man.
sure you're sure of what you want to do this
Mm.
time. And there's that doubt. And
Yeah.
then also it's also wondering about God. So did you not ask me to marry him? Or maybe I did
Yes.
that by
I
myself.
do myself. Oh,
And
this
are
is
you now redirecting me because I made the wrong? Because I know that when we take wrong turns,
mm,
God redirects us. You know, like how you're going
that's
on a
very true.
GPS that
Yes, yes,
tells you,
yes.
yeah, recalculating. So I'm like, so is this divorce? Is this God recalculating because I took the wrong turn, or was this always your plan? And the problem is you can't summon him and come downstairs. I have a question, and he answers the question, right? You
If only, if
if
only.
only, or you could just go to his office and knock, like, hey, real quick,
Real quick to check in.
real quick, and I'll be out of your head. What
God,
is was this the plan? Just let me know, because I'm like driving myself crazy trying to figure it
that's
out.
hard.
But
That's a real issue
you
for me,
can't get him like that. You can even shout and scream till the cows come home.
bro.
That's what Igbo people call mbana balago. Yeah, you're just yelling at the lion. Okay, yeah, there's nothing you can do.
Oh my god.
Now, when you're done yelling, you tell him, "I'm very sorry, sir.
Exactly.
I'm sorry for the things I said when I was angry. Carry
For
on."
the mentioning. Oh my god. I feel like this is such a real issue that Christians deal with every day. Like,
Yeah.
honest,
Yes.
truly and truly, truly, anyone that believes in God, like believes in Jesus,
Yes.
that's a real struggle. Like, how much of this was me? How much
Yes.
of it was you?
Yes.
I feel like and I've talked about this with like my mom, my different people, and me. I've just chosen to believe that, like, since I dedicated I told, like, whenever it is I told God, listen, you just, because one of my prayers, like, especially when I first like came out of the hospital, I was like getting
Hmm.
into like different things, was like, I want like these things, and I want this and I want that, but God, please, like, in every situation, please make sure it's your will that
Right.
is being done and not mine. Like, I know
Yes.
what I want, but if your will is not what I want, then use your will to, you have my permission to use your own will,
Hmm.
usurp my life, and let things go the way you want.
Hmm.
And I feel like once, if we've ever prayed that kind of prayer,
Yes.
I want to believe that that is sustaining in everything, because
Hmm.
that way, when I doubt these moments, like, and it still doesn't take away the full, like, it's still a struggle even when it's
Yes.
happening. But I try to remember, like, Kechi, and it's the only time it's a problem is when things fail, because that's when
Yeah. Of course. Of
that now.
course.
So I'm like, I have to, it's hard to so if I'm saying that, okay, this failure happened and God's will is still acting in my life, then I have to believe that this was part of his will. And so
Hmm.
that's what me I try to do, to like give myself some kind of comfort. But then the thing is, it's so hard depending on what it is. It's easier to
Yes.
say in certain situations, but in something like a person passing away,
Yes.
like
Yes.
like like what you just gave, the example you just gave now, a
Hmm.
divorce, when at the time when you were marrying the person, you were this was like
Yeah.
given like
Yeah.
relationship,
You are even thanking God. Ah, thank you, God. And so
exactly.
now I'm like,
So it's so hard. How am I going to think? How can I think that
yeah.
this feeling, this pain, is a part of your plan? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things to like to adjust to in that
Yeah.
moment of pain. Like, is my pain right now still part of that prayer of
Hmm.
your will be done? Because I'm struggling that I don't. You want good for your children, so why would this be part of your will? And then
Yes.
it goes back to that thinking that I had about like my mom saying that, bad things happen to good and bad people.
Right.
And I just keep circling these thoughts in my head until
Yes.
I get to a place where I'm just like, okay, let's just be going.
It's
And
basically back and forth depending on the day depending on the day.
how the day
Some
goes,
days you have a challenge and you're like, you know what? God is in control. And some other days you're like, okay, God, but you are
come
God.
on now, but
You
you're
could
God.
have done this differently. Like, why did you
You
have
have
to do it this way?
me. You have told me, like, why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell me? Oh no, these are
I'm not saying that somebody else should have been in the crash, but why did the crash have to happen at all?
what
You
yeah,
could have just landed us safely.
yes, like, why do we have to do? Why do we have to go this difficult, painful? Because you're supposed to be here.
Right,
Bro,
right, right.
so true.
You just keep asking, and like I said, he doesn't. When I've been watching the series, The Chosen,
Oh,
on
me too. Oh, me
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of
Same.
the things I love about The Chosen is how it humanizes Christ.
Yes.
It
Yes.
just makes him like a regular. But then I sometimes I place myself with I'm like, how would I have been if I knew Christ at the
Yes.
time? Like, what kind of questions? I'm like, this man, he would have probably been sick of me because I'd have been like, hold on, but let me ask you something.
Yes. Let me just ask you.
And I'll start replaying everything that's happened in my life.
Yep.
This happened. I don't understand why. What
Yes.
is the point? I don't see the lesson in like
I
why
don't
did you
see
do
the
that?
lesson. Oh my
I
god.
don't why did you do that? I want to like I don't see how that was a plus. How did that help?
This is so real. This is so real. Where's the
So,
lesson here? And also,
yeah,
like sometimes, what about like when the same lesson keeps on
yes.
happening in your life?
Because
Like,
they say if you don't learn the lesson,
I
you have to.
haven't learned it, but I learned it. I
I'm
learned
like, yeah, exactly. Or when I see that one, God gives his what is it,
strongest
toughest
soldiers.
battles. I'm always like, God, please.
That's
I
enough.
don't want to be strong. And if you want, I'm okay.
Self-life. It's time for self-life.
Thank you.
I'm tired of being a soldier. One of my friends is like, I'm tired of being the soldier. Can I be the medic? Can I just be the person at the back that people
Right,
to come
right.
and them? Like, I'm trying to
Right.
be the one in front with the sword. I don't want it again. I'm sick
Yeah.
and tired.
Yeah, no, I spoke to someone, they were talking about how he builds character. I was like, what am I even using
No,
character to
I'm
do?
tired. No, literally, what kind of character continue? My character doesn't pay the
I
bills.
don't need the character anymore. I'm okay. No more.
Oh my
No
god,
more. This
enough
is it.
character. That's enough
My
character.
character is enough for me. I don't need any more
Oh,
character. I
it's
don't
so
need to be stronger.
no, as in like I've reached the pinnacle of my strength. I'm begging you, take over,
Yeah,
take over anytime, bro. It's so comforting in a way to kind of know that we're all kind of dealing with these things as
yeah,
Christians. Right?
yes, yes, absolutely. Like no, no,
Struggles.
no more, please. All these people that are living soft life, they don't have two heads. I'm okay with this.
And
So
like some of them are not the greatest people either. So what's going
yes, yes, exactly. Like I'm
on?
okay.
It's so, I mean,
Don't build my character anymore. It's okay. I'm not a greedy person. The level of character I have is
yeah,
okay.
it's like please. I'm not even asking. I'm not even asking for much.
No, this is okay for me. Thank you, sir.
Oh God.
Before I let you go, Kechi, I know you have to go. What would you say to people who are listening or watching this right now and are going through some of these things that we just discussed, the doubt, the lack of confidence, the questioning themselves, questioning God? What would you say to them, especially women?
Questioning God, questioning everything. I would say that I really hope that my life and my testimony, the things I've gone through and where I am today, I hope that some part of my story can resonate with them and show them the life that can be after trauma. You know, when
Mhm.
you're in the middle of something that's very traumatic, and it doesn't have to be something so obvious like my struggle or something so obviously physical. You know, people have invisible scars that are just as painful,
Yes.
sometimes even worse because you know when it's a psychological issue or a mental issue, it can have much more long lasting effects. You know, think of the example of the two me and Bumi that survived the
Yes.
accident and
Yes.
how one survived despite not having these obvious physical injuries. She
Hmm.
has long term psychological things that have held her back a lot in her life.
Hmm.
So I feel like they're both the same kind of struggle, physical or mental. So when I say trauma, I mean trauma in every way. I really want to be an example to people that have gone through trauma, are going through trauma, to show them that there is life after trauma and
Yes.
that that life can be one that you thrive in and not just merely
Hmm.
survive. And so I understand more than anyone the fact that when you're in it, it's so hard to see anything
Yep.
but the darkness around you.
Yep.
So I want to be an example of someone who has been in that darkness and is now operating in that light that people always talk about that comes out of that darkness. And I want to let them know that that light is there. It's you can't see it now, and trust me, I understand because when I was in it, I couldn't see it. But I will say that in the worst of it, I felt that I owed it to myself to keep on persevering because the longer I was in that darkness, the more I craved the light, and I felt like I deserved the light that would come after this. And I am an example that there is that light, and
Yeah.
you can reach that light if you persevere. If you stop in the middle of your struggle, then it would have been for nothing, because all you would know is
Yes.
that struggle. That's the
Yeah.
fact. You just stop in that place, then that's all you will see. But if you decide that you don't want your story to end in that darkness, then let me be an example of the fact that there is light to look forward to. And
Mhm.
if you don't hear anyone else, please hear me, because I've definitely, I hope you can tell that I've definitely gone through a lot of dark situations,
Yeah.
but I can be here right now and I can smile. It's not because of my power. It's not because of anything that made Kechi special, but it is everything to do with the power inside me that has taken care of me, and the people around me that have stood by me.
Mm.
I'm a result of a lot of different wonderful, like, people and things that have come together to make me who I am today. And I hope that you people out there that are going through stuff also have, even if it's just one person, it doesn't have to be blood.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not blood. Sometimes the best person, your support system, sometimes it's not made up of blood. It can be,
Mhm.
mine included, like, the surgeons that didn't give up on me, the physical therapists that, despite my cursing them out because they were causing me so much pain, stuck by me because they knew that it was for my own good. If I wanted to walk properly again, if I wanted to use my body and be independent again. So, try not to push those people away from your life, because it can be very easy to do that when because you feel like no one can understand. They can't understand your struggle,
Right.
and they can't, because your struggle is your own, but they do
Mhm.
mean well. So try not to push them away. And trust me that there is life after trauma. And I hope that you give yourself the chance to see that life.
Thank you, Ketchy. That was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And I just want to remind everyone about what I said earlier, that I said my pastor said about your scars. You choose what they're going to be for, if they're going to be destined for destruction
Yep.
or for destiny. And it's your choice. It's all of our choices to decide what we're going to use our experiences and our wounds. And everybody has wounds. We can't escape it.
Very true.
Unfortunately, we all have wounds. But Ketchy, I so much appreciate your time. Thank you for spending this evening with us. And where do people find you when they want to connect with you?
Oh, please just type my name, Kechi, and you'll find me on Instagram. You'll find my website. You'll find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok, even. Yeah, you'll find me everywhere. Just, type my name and you'll find me. And yeah, and my book is also on Amazon. Type my name, you'll see it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, wherever. But yeah, just find me, connect, let me know, what you think about anything, really. Yeah.
Okay. Ketch's book is called More Than My Scars. And I'll link everything in the description to her social media and to the book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ketchy. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Pleasure. Please let me know when everything is live so I can help you promote.
Absolutely. Absolutely.